Today is November 14th, 2 days after the PlayStation 5 launch. It is 6:46 a.m. And this is the Board State. The Board State is a weekly podcast YouTube show where we discuss articles that have to deal with gaming for good and game design for social good. My name is Jeffrey Vierra, aka Mr. V, and I'm joined with, who are you, sir?
Jack.
Jack. It's 6:46, 7 in the morning right now, Jack. Just wanted to reemphasize that, how early it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay, so today's show is a bit of a deja vu on actually just one of the articles, and then the question of the day was brought over from last week, and that is because yours truly forgot to
It's a
press record.
yeah, and it's another lost episode.
It's another lost. I like these lost episodes. It's like they're existing in an alternative reality in the fifth dimension.
Yep.
They're existing there. We have quite a lot of those, actually, existing in that dimension.
The SCP Foundation wants to know your location, Mr. V.
Wow. All right. All right. All right. So, first article is going to be from abc.net.au. And this is the article that I pulled from last week's show, which, again, I'm so happy to talk about again. And it is Forget the Moral Panic. Christians today are finding the spiritual side of board games and video games. Jack, what is this article about? Unreal, man.
Honestly, it's about how gaming change the course of its perception to all of the current events happening right now. And if you were a gamer of any point, you will remember that a lot of religious groups was often targeting gaming for negative impacts or for negative things, whether it was Call of Duty, Magic the Gathering. Take your game, they probably had some beef with it. But now, due to current situations, they really are, like everyone else, having this perception shift and actually seeing all of the positive things that really gaming has to offer, not just to the religious community, but to everyone in the world. And we're going to see more articles like this. Well, once they were denouncing gaming for their sins, now it's, oh, actually, no, it's actually very respectable and very helpful. And it's going to not only help gaming, but also help the understanding of the arts in general. Because now you will have more people more accepting to different ways of arts and different techniques and different ideals. One thing to quote from the article again directly is this quote, there is not much difference between a monk who is in this mindful state, sitting there reflecting on the magnitude of this world, and someone who is playing a puzzle game for 11 hours.
So awesome.
Just there's going to be more articles like this, and from if you're not a gamer to you're a hardcore gamer, this is one article you should read for yourself. Okay.
Man, I love this article so much. There's so much here to extract out, but you just summed it up in that quote. But it's religion, um, especially Christianity, Catholicism, um, that devotional faith-based religion has always been built around um, congregation, right? Like returning to a church or a place of worship, and then having like a communal space for the community to share and offer themselves up in reverence. And I think these practices, and they actually even say this in the article, that there is some overlap. Where did I see that there was some overlap with um, pagan practices, and this is just, I mean, just how free thinking these Christians are, right? And I think that's really, really important in our day and age, to be a little bit more liberal in that sense, and not so restrictive on how one should practice their communion.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so what I'm saying is that traditionally practices of faith would meet up in a place, and that's essentially what happens with tabletop. Of course, there's some exceptions now with COVID, that we have these virtual platforms that that we can play and share a virtual space together. But as cool as that is, I feel that it's still missing something, right? We just started getting together and playing board games, physicality of each other as well, and I felt a definite difference from being in a space and moving things around and looking up and seeing you crush my RoboCop guy or attack my RoboCop guy. But I mean, it was very, very different than
Mm-hmm.
sharing a virtual space and moving pieces across, than actually you being there as well. And I think that definitely shares the same sensibilities as art practices of faith and gathering. So that aligns perfectly. There's one more quote that I want to mention, and so there's this idea of a Venn diagram. The Venn diagram is like these two circles of, like in this example, the Venn diagram for Christians and nerds. So nerd would be in the middle. So if you're a nerd, Christian, Christian and nerds kind of overlap a little bit, right? And then you kind of become a nerd. So I guess they're still sort of they feel like an outsider, I guess, still in this day and age, despite its popularity. So yeah, so as you can see here's the thing. So it sounds like a pagan ritual, and it's true that the idea has been around for a long time. This concept of John Huizinga's magic circle, like we talked about that last episode. So I love this. This is an article that I'm going to bookmark and return to time and time again, to just remember how important tabletop gaming is.
Yep.
Yep. All right. So that is Forget the Moral Panic. Christians today are finding the spiritual side of board games and video games. Do me a favor. Just remember this. Let's send this article to Auntie Leilani as well. I think this is one she should actually really dig. Okay. All right.
No,
Next article. Huh?
no. No, we're not sending it to Auntie Leilani. Because she'll be like, guys, I have a perfect idea.
It's fine. Remember, they can all go into a queue. All right. Let's not get on that tangent. But I think it'd be really cool to her to kind of see, right, like the different applications. Okay. So next article is by, oh my gosh, Calculist, calculist.com. Because it was so hard to say, because like the website is like calculistech.com, and it is Israel's indie game industry is ready for its big breakout. And I'll just read the subheading here. Digital distribution has transformed indie developers into dominant forces in the gaming industry. After years out in the cold, a new generation of Israeli creators is heating things up. Jack, what are your thoughts on this article?
We're going to also see a lot more articles like this as well. Well, countries often being portrayed by the news are now being like, no, that's not us, and here is us, and using gaming as a way to express not just their culture but also their history and what they believe in now. We saw this in Ireland and in New Zealand and even in Poland. But we're going to see this more in not just in countries, but also in Native Americans and Native Hawaiians and Native Aboriginals. We're going to see this more happening because it's such a big impact well game devs can have for culture because you're not only painting it on like a stone tablet or painting it on a canvas, you're not only singing about it, you're participating in it, whether that be trying to fight off the Mongol hordes in Japan, or that could be riding in a cowboy western in space. All of these things show different parts of our culture, whether they want to or not. And so, even though the concepts may be weird for some, for example, if you watch the trailer they have on the article called Grimm, which is from a Israeli indie dev, at first I was like, oh, that's a Call Cthulhu-esque. But in actuality, that's supposed to represent one of the major issues that is going on in Israel. I'm not going to mention which one, but yeah. And I highly encourage you to just not only read the article, but also experience the games they have on their recommended. Because these are the games that I even was like, okay, is it out yet? Because it really is showcasing what indie devs is doing, which is more creative and more things to do. They also call two things, and I want to do that. The first one,
Is he gonna do it, ladies and gentlemen?
Mr. VC's All Eyes on Poland.
That's why I was so happy to put this in there. I was kind of going through it. I'm like, oh! I'm gonna step back, sir. You go right ahead. I'm gonna drink my coffee and mind my own business.
My thing with Poland is not I love the country because I want to be Polish. My thing with Poland is that they did it correctly first. And not just in the AAA scene, but also in the indie scene where we saw a lot of games talking not just about their history, but what actually happened. We often see games in the West, like for example, major AAA games, really not pushing that narrative or not showing the real history of anything. They have to make a game where it could sell. But now Poland made the example to well, no, you don't have to make a game where it has to sell. You could make a game that's talking about issues related to your people and it will sell too. You could make a game about your history and it will sell even more than if you just deny it or try to make a cookie cutter version of it. I could go on, but I
Okay.
know I'm gonna go into a rant, so I will stop there. The second part is
Oh, okay.
let me find it is here. Quote from the article. Indie games can even become a worldwide cultural phenomenon, as in the case of Minecraft, and with so many others. The games, which started as a solo project of Swedish video game programmer designer Marcus Posius, is one of the gaming culture's biggest icons, reaching all corners of the globe and being acquired by Microsoft for $2.5 billion in 2014. Yeah, I'm
Is it
not
my turn?
saying this.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So I'm just gonna scroll right back. I'm just gonna continue on to what you were saying. So everything you said is awesome. Congratulations, Israel. Very cool. This is something that we're hearing a lot, just like you said. But I'm just gonna scroll down to the header for this subject is all eyes on Poland. I'm not making this up. That's literally what it says. And but what's really cool about this article here is they talk about how a small, like in the 90s, the polls had no bearing on the gaming market. But the moment CD Projekt Red stopped exclusively marketing games from abroad and started developing games on their own, the industry transformed into a monster. So they put everything into, you know, this one series, polish, and you know, this is like the hero's journey, is, you know, is what we're hearing. You know, the smaller, nondescript hero that kind of goes away. You know, he kind of gets beat up. You know, maybe, you know, and then he goes into the mountains, finds some monk or whatever, or some enchanted sword, and then goes back and slays the dragon essentially. And that's what CD Projekt Red did. They shifted, I guess, from being a publishing company and then focused all their efforts on The Witcher, just focusing it and polishing it, and you know, took time and effort, a lot of effort, and I'm sure they were faced with a lot of doubts. And boom, now everyone's talking about Poland. So I think that's, and this his name is Shem Toby, is he uses them to kind of reinforce his case on Israel. So that's kind of the case study that they're following right now, is CG Project Red, this small little upstart, you know, small, so crazy to say that, that, you know, made a global influence, you know, from a faraway country that in the 90s and 80s it was like Japan and America and North America, then all of a sudden Poland. So yeah, that is why I put this article in here. So Israel indie game industry is ready for its big breakout, by calculustech.com. All right, next article is going to be from the eyeopener.com. Man, what a cool name for a website. Love that. And it is students design video game based on city water crisis. Jack, what are your thoughts on this article?
We're also going to set out more articles like this. This is going to be a theme for, you know, this episode, guys. But basically, we're going to see a lot more articles like this, but for the very different reasons. Because we're all humans. We all make mistakes. And sometimes these mistakes can be very, very big. Sometimes these mistakes could be very, very small. But the big ones will get more talked about than the small ones. And because of that, you will have people and artists who will create, who is inspired by the issues of these mistakes. So, and this is a case of that. And it's not just, oh, adults, okay, they're making a game, okay. It's the students, and that's another thing that you're going to see more often. Students are making artwork, making games, making music to express their emotions because they can't express this, because they can't solve it at that stage of their lives. But they could get more people aware of it. They could get more people, get more eyes on it, to the point where more people could solve the issue instead of the same person who made it. And that's going to help not just for this solution, which is the problem they're facing, is a water crisis. I mean, we went to Venn, Michigan, me and Mr. V, to do a talk on game design. And of course, I'm not saying, oh, we inspire them to make game development because we went over to Michigan. What I'm saying is, the Michigan story is not just is not going to be the only one. We're going to see more crises like that as we go into the near future. And it's up to us to really demonstrate it, whether it's to solve that problem or solve that mistake, or to get more people aware, like how these students are doing. And just to quote from the article, complex issues are best told through the lives of people who experience, illustrate the very systems at play. Can I end my time?
Okay, think about you. Woo! Okay, so here we are again. Issue in the community being gamified. Of course, we're going to talk about it. So this is from Canada, Toronto, and this is Ria Kapoor and her team are leading the way to gamifying water crisis in Toronto. And the article cites that Indigenous communities, Aboriginals, and things like that, there is a lack of access to water, right? The most fundamental right that we should all have, air, water, without a doubt, right? That is something that shouldn't be controlled. Unfortunately, it is in Hawaii. Is governed by a board of water supply. But that is an issue here in Hawaii as well. Water rights for farms and things like that. So a couple of things that I want to call out. So, I mean, you said it all perfectly. But I love this here. Behavior change has to happen. People need to have a sense of agency. And this is something I think we should remember when we're talking about the Kaala project that we're working on. And this as well. Storytelling. I'm going to put a parentheses here. Gaming as a form of advocacy. By engaging their audience with gameplay and visual storytelling, gaming, Kapoor, Spooner, and Jabin want to advocate the water crisis and illustrate it in a way that drives a change in a way that people think and behave about environmental justice. So this is another right-click copy, right-click paste application for gaming, or as she's calling it, visual storytelling, right? And I was having this discussion this past week with a friend of mine, and it's almost like we kind of don't even want to call it gaming anymore. I mean, yes, it is. I mean, without a doubt, but it's like what we're doing and what people like this are, and what designers like this are doing is they're almost creating a new form of like media that isn't quite game. I mean, it is like you interact with it, it's fun, you can laugh, you can kind of high five, but it's almost like it's begging for a new name for this new type of medium, this new category of interaction and experience. So yes.
I will humbly disagree with that.
Okay.
Because
okay.
That's what people say with, alternate reality games and then VR. It's not going to be considered gaming. I don't consider it gaming, and that may be your opinion, but I see it as, if you're a game developer making a game, then it should be called gaming because it has on that right.
Yeah. Okay. I mean that makes sense as well. And I'm not saying that it's not a game. Like but it's, I don't know. I mean, I'm seeing it as it is, but it isn't at the same time. And a lot of this has to do with, well, there's two ways to kind of see this. There's one way, Jack, where you're saying like the accessibility of like, yeah, it's just a game. But on the other side, it's telling people, well, it's not just a game. Right? So
Right.
yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying too, but like, yeah, I almost feel that like these type of like environmental justice games and things like that, it's, and like these type of like gaming for social good and things like that, like it's almost this new genre that's emerging that doesn't quite have a classification yet, but is begging to be classified somehow. But not, I mean, it's definitely not necessary. You know what I mean? It's like
Right.
saying, but what I'm saying is like, you know, like you have like RPGs, you have
Like,
like action game, like it's almost like it needs to be kind of its own genre. But I
like
mean, when you
subcategory.
almost, but I mean, but the other end is like, you know, when you start, you know, they there's this big debate. Let me get on my soapbox really quick. There's this big debate in the highbrow metal community, guys that listen to like metal, about all these crazy hipster subclasses of metal, right? There's like math metal, you know, doom, and you know, stoner rock, and you know, it just goes on and on and on and on and on. But in the end, it's kind of all metal, right? but but it allows you to see, the more specific something gets, the more specific,
Mhm.
you know, what you like, right? So you like, you know, if you go to a store or something, you can say, oh, I'm into economic simulators, and then you can be like, ah, I know exactly where that is, right? Look at the section here, here's a good one, here's a good one, here's a good one, here's a good one. Whereas if you went in and just say, I like certain kind of board games, but other certain kind of board games I
Wait,
don't
wait,
like.
wait,
And
wait.
then they're like, oh, so what kind of board games you like? I'm like, I like the board games that are not really random, you know, that my decision. And then, you know, it's like, oh, okay, you know, try this. But if you have like a category, you can just say like, I like this, and they can lead you to that. But it's also a trap. So,
Yeah, like for example, I love Sabaton, but I know you don't like Sabaton. And if our viewers don't know what Sabaton is, I highly suggest you watch 421. It's about Poland thing.
oh, are you done? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm kidding. Yes. Okay. We stayed a little bit too long in this article, but I think it was worth it. Thank you for that rant. And this is Students Design Video Game Based on City Water Crisis by theeyeopener.com. All right. And then, of course, you know, if you listeners have comments, you know, that you want to, you know, continue this conversation with us on, you know, should games have all of these classifications, or should they just be called games, or should they not be called games anymore? You drop it in the comment section here, or email us at Jack. Where can they email us?
theboardstate@gmail.com.
There you go. All right. Next article is by thetechraptor.net, and it is Video Game History Hour podcast launched by Jack. Not yeah, Hobbes. Wow, Jack, you made a Video Game History Hour podcast. Great idea. It's not by Jack, but Jack found this article, and I'm gonna check this one out. Very cool. What is the article about, Jack?
You know, we want to also showcase not just other game developers, but other creators, whether that be esports commentators to this athletes performing to athletes going into here and making positive change to to streamers and now to podcasters. And this may not be an article for you. If you're like if you just want to read like a good feel good article, this may not be the article. But the podcast may be. And so what the podcast is basically teaching people the history of video games. Reason why they call it video game historian on YouTube. And it's really a lot of these lessons and foundations that we learn in the gaming industry can not only be applied right now to game development right now, but also to other curriculums where that be teaching in a class to building a house as a construction worker. These lessons are distinct because it really is showcasing what game developers and artists, whoever makes a game, has to go through. And this is the best way to gather data as well on what would it take, because now you're learning the lessons from the past. That's basically the gist of this article. But it really gains its appeal for me at the very least, because this is probably one of the only podcasts you're going to find talking about video game history. So I highly encourage you all to go and check out at least one of their episodes. You could find it on YouTube, like I was saying, on the Video Game Historian. And it's made by Mario Paint. Wait, no. Sorry, was the inaugural episode speaking about Mario Paint. The guy is not named Mario Paint. I want to clarify this before you guys are searching up, episode, the guy made by Mario Paint. His name is Maru Tramis. Right? Am I reading it right?
Sounds good.
Yeah,
So there's one, I don't remember. I think it might be this one, but the video game historian. I think it's the one I follow one on YouTube. There's a really, really good one that goes like super deep into the history of like Sega games and Nintendo games and PlayStation games, whatever. This might be the same guy, but he's been doing it for a long time. I think he has like a Patreon and things like that. But this is the video game history. There's a lot of content to cover, like a lot. You can even get into the really obscure stuff. It's a fantastic topic. It's really good to listen to as well passively. Again, video game and gaming industry is like the industry. So, very cool find, man. Techraptor.com, video game history and our podcast launch. Okay, final article of the day. And this is by the Stanford Daily, Jack's favorite website in the world. Among Us, Minecraft, and Animal Crossing. Video gaming during quarantine. Jack, what is this article about?
It really is about just how not only the indie scene that we saw in prior articles is rising to the occasion, but also how people's emotions, like how we saw in the Christian article earlier on in this episode, really is coming out. And really, the understanding of it all is really being showcased. Quoting from the article, this one I'm going to do a lot of quotes so you don't think I'm horse speaking you. Quote 1. It seems people are either returning to gaming, following a life that just could, give me one sec, you're blocking the wording, that just couldn't make time for them or make people interested in the world of video games. As we saw in the prior article with the now religious groups are now taking another look at gaming in general, not just in tabletop, but also in other areas as well, trying to really go in depth into that. Second quote from the article, Cole explains how people and old have taken up video gaming as a way to ease anxiety during quarantine. The bright colors and the simple movements in games such as Fall Guys can provide an escape from the hectic outside world. That's the meat of this article. I highly recommend you read for yourself, but this is what gaming wants to do. They want to bring people in and welcome them and also keep them in. Not to say, let's do microtransactions. It's more of build a community so that way you could be remembered and not as another EA.
Wow. Okay. Yes. So during times of quarantine and COVID, our connection is done through our screens, right? Like whether it's FaceTime or texting or whatnot, and uh, the place of play, is through those same mediums, right? When we're playing video games collectively, or just cracking jokes in Discord, it's all through our screens. And I think the vehicle for play through screens is gaming, and it's no secret gaming has gaming companies have exponentially made quite a lot of money in the last 8 months during quarantine, or 7 months, whatever it is now. Um, and and the games like Among Us, doing very, very, very well. Animal Crossing, which I love how they say it in this article. My personal experience, video games such as Animal Crossing were used to connect 3 generations of a family during quarantine, ranging from 12 to 60 years old. That is awesome. That is just so freaking cool. Animal Crossing might not be, the greatest game in the world to some people, because you're not killing stuff and whatnot, but to have something like that, like some kind of a medium that will bridge generations like that, that is so hard to design and create. So man, good on Nintendo. Animal Crossing I mean, I haven't played Cyberpunk yet, but Animal Crossing will probably be my game of the year. Still, we'll see where we get to the end of the year, but I'm thinking Animal Crossing will be my game of the year. And yeah, so this is very, very cool. This supports the idea, and I love this. Like, you were mentioning MS Paint, but the MS Paint kind of graphics that they put in this article, where it's like they're overlying real life, like an actual
Mhm.
photo of like a home or whatever, and they have like an Animal Crossing character hanging out there. They have this cat with like the cybernetic like part of his face like done with like MS Paint. It was very, very cool.
I could actually tell you what game that is from. So, if I remember correctly, it was part of one of those. It was a part of this company that made a lot of indie projects, and I know their art style, and it's really like that. MS
Mhm.
Paint pixelated, and it was there. A lot of their games was like knowable when I was in middle school.
Okay, okay.
But yeah, and it was like simple. Oh, remember the game where you had to move the frog and get him to the other side of the road?
Frogger.
Yeah, Fargo.
Okay.
So it's kind of like that. Most of the games was like kind of like
Hmm.
that. Well, it's basically it's you get from point A to point B.
Got it. All right. So that is Stanford Daily, Among Us, Minecraft, and Animal Crossing. Video gaming during quarantine, a highlight. All right. So at this part of the show, so that does it for our articles. Now we have a question of the day or actually should be the question of the week. It's not. I mean, it's the day that we answer it, but let me think about that. So, so we answer one of you. So you can send us questions, comments, poetry at Jack. Where can they send that?
Boardstate@gmail.com.
Theboardstate@gmail.com. Yes, thank you. And we pick one of the questions and answer it on the show. So the question is, hey guys, and this is the question from last week. So we're gonna modify what we said last week. This is such a good question. Hey guys, I love the show, especially the latest episodes. My question: if either of you were to make a game about this year's election, what kind of a game would it be, and how would you theme it? Gnarls 33. Jack, you go first.
I would deem as a I would deem it as you playing as the UN, okay? And
Hmm.
then there was these two nations that has diametrically opposing ideals, but they want to unify as one nation. And as your job as like this diplomat, you need to balance both the needs of these two diametrically opposed nations
Mhm.
to well it is become one with no violence. If there is like one bloodshed, it's an automatic game over. Because that's then you fail as a diplomat, you know? So yeah, it's like you're a diplomat and as an outsider, you're looking into the situation, trying to solve it.
Okay. Cool. My game. So I'm gonna change what I said last week. I'm in a different mood today. So I think my game, I would make a super hardcore, like just heavy, either video game or board game. We're talking like Phil Eklund level of like just heavy, like nosebleed game that is a election ballot simulator. So you are this company that has been hired by some government to collect and run ballots. But it's just like all the intricacies of like having to collect it and hire the right kind of people and watching for fraud and all that, like just this like mega nosebleed brain destroyer simulator. I think that'd be really hilarious.
No, we should actually make it like that and be like, hey guys, you wanna know what poll workers look like? Play this game.
But right, you know what I mean? Like just like really just insane, like the tech in the game is just like, you know, like not for the faint of heart. You're like just like, oh my god, like
No, they're gonna use that game to be like, okay, you wanna be a poll worker? Play this game.
sure,
If you
yeah.
if you come back to us within the next 30 minutes, you're a poll worker.
Yeah, they talk about like in order to play EVE Online, you need to like you need to be equivalent of like a first year engineer student or something like that. So, like the similar kind of thing, or like like all these statistics and things that you have to learn.
I pay EVE Online for 6 months. I still cannot get out of the starting area.
Oh, got it. Okay. So yeah, that's gonna do it, folks. Thank you so much for listening. Have a fantastic week, and we'll talk to you next week. Cheers.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Jeff.